AWS Loft Talks.
I'm with Optimatic Media. We're in Midtown, New Jersey. We're a video SSP, and I'm the head of optimization for Optimatic. I've been there for about a year. Previously, I was with a company called Slingo. We did games and entertainment, built technology and their ad serving platform there. Before we ultimately sold to Real Networks, spent about a year and a half there building their ad solution. So my goal here is to really go through a lot of things about the current digital ad ecosystem, ad platforms in general, evolving publisher needs, because my job really is about finding solutions for publishers and how that affects the ad space as a whole and where things are going. Current solutions in self-serve platforms, where mobile's ultimately going to take this, and some of what powers all of this. Obviously, a lot of you are familiar with the video ecosystem, where Optimatic sits as an SSP. We sit between the trading desks, the DSPs, exchanges, ad networks, and we ultimately service about 10 billion impressions a month for our syndication partners. We've got long-tail publishers, large publishers, owned and operated. So from our perspective, our job is to service both sides of the equation. If we write our publishers the largest check every month as possible, then we've ultimately serviced our advertisers on the buy side. From a platform overview, what it really comes down to is demand optimization. This is where I spend a lot of my time. And our technology stack very specifically works with OpenRTBs and waterfalls. We very specifically work with floor management and making sure that we're maximizing revenue for our publishers, yield optimization, and our predictive optimization platform. So we also are a technology shop. We have an ad serving platform with a video player. We do support for mobile, desktop. We have our low latency ad server, as well as making sure that we're optimizing for our fill. And then we have our publisher services. So our infrastructure is really a combination of our data, our security, our third-party platforms, and ultimately working with actually some of the people who will be speaking next when it comes to servicing the demand side as well. Publishers are very important, obviously, to our business, and they consistently are facing a series of challenges, many of which are constantly evolving. Everybody likes to, talk about like this is the wild, wild west, but I haven't seen anybody really get shot yet. So from a publisher perspective, though, they're constantly dealing with operability challenges. There's a lot of technology in this space. There's a lot of people that they can potentially work with. It's time consuming to try to work with multiple types of partners. So companies that are SSPs tend to work with becoming a central resource in order to help them kind of centralize their technology. The overall lack of pricing data, it is difficult to see across a larger marketplace and a larger ecosystem what advertisers are paying for similar properties. So an SSP's job is ultimately to make sure that we're maximizing the yield optimization there for them. Obviously, tracking and reporting data solutions are different between companies. There are commonly held standards, but not everybody adheres to them exactly the same way, and then there are still things that are subject to interpretation. But there's definitely fragmentation in the industry, so companies that are SSPs in the space are very specifically there to help ultimately bring all this together and create a more comprehensive solution so that publishers don't necessarily have to work with 15 different companies. They can really just work with one or two to satisfy specifically their needs. Fill rates are very important, obviously, for publishers. Unsold inventory is wasted, and it's our job to ensure the fact that we are providing the best yield optimization as possible. And then obviously low eCPMs. Every dollar counts in this space. There's a number of different monetization models out there that publishers employ between how they ultimately get their traffic, how they ultimately work in a syndicated marketplace, depending on their business model. Everybody's backing into ROI slightly differently, so obviously making sure that they're getting the most revenue per impression is very important. So, 3 years ago when it was you worked with one advertiser and whatever they filled, and you have, your one or two VAS tags on your site, and you're dealing with whatever the CPM is from the advertiser you're dealing with. That was how much you filled, and that's what your eCPM was. As the industry has matured, as the technology has gotten a little bit more complex, you can ultimately waterfall different solutions, RTB, open bidding environments. This has allowed companies to step in and kind of help publishers with their eCPM related issues. And then ultimately collections, and publishers don't want to ultimately have to deal with getting money out of these guys. So it's the job of the SSP to step in and kind of service that as well. The space is heading towards, and where there's room for continued development, where there's room for third-party implementations, where there's room for more technology growth ultimately is in more comprehensive platforms by creating better pricing data, automating reporting, getting better fill rates, seamless third-party integrations, and as well as servicing some of the growing challenges in the space. If you're following any of the trends in the video ad space right now, there's a lot of talk about viewability, what's going to happen when Google Chrome takes Flash and pauses it when it's out of view, and how that's going to affect the industry. So I'm sure a lot of people have ultimately seen the Lumascapes that are out there. The ad industry itself is fairly massive. There are a lot of different components in the space, and there's always room for people to develop solutions to very specific problems, so long as they can ultimately integrate with people's existing tech, because not everybody wants to tear out their tech solution and start over again. So ultimately being able to integrate with a lot of existing tech that's out there is really important. For us, we went with a predictive optimization platform. We call it POP. What we like to do is make sure that we have a real-time solution that's constantly re-optimizing our waterfalls for our partners. It's a combination of several pieces of technology. We've built it within our platform. Our AWS solution is completely back-ending our tech stack in this area. And what we've done is built a proprietary technology suite that very specifically works in real time to ensure the fact that we are looking at the bidding data that's happening and ultimately resurfacing our inventory to ensure that the most impressions get filled on a real-time basis. So it's an automated logic-based. This way it's not necessarily humans going in and having to manipulate things, but relying on a full technology solution in order to do that. Because as solutions become more hybrid, as more RTB platforms are introduced to the marketplace, there's still existing vPaid solutions, there's still existing waterfalls that need to be managed. So these solutions are becoming more and more hybrid. So leveraging more automated technology solutions ultimately is going to produce the best results. So obviously we want to automate optimization and yield and use larger data sets for more accurate optimizations. This creates bigger data sets, bigger data solutions, and ultimately what our plan is to leverage additional AWS services for our big data solutions as we continue to I think we're throwing off now petabytes of data on a daily basis now. Obviously mobile is the present. It's almost every device out there can be pretty much considered mobile at this point. Mobile inventory is really starting to outpace the desktop growth, about 5-to-1 from what we've seen. But tangible solutions are definitely going to need to be developed for the deliverability of mobile inventory. There are some mobile standards. You've got MRAID, you've got Mobile Vast, but right now none of it's great, to be perfectly honest. And as the never connected generation continues to expand in mobile, and as more inventory moves towards a mobile space, the need for mobile plugins, mobile development, mobile solutions is definitely going to continue to grow. Personally, I think anybody looking to start in developing solutions for ad tech is going to want to start at looking at the mobile landscape and figuring out ultimately where they can build appropriate tech for the space. Our technology stack for our code base, we've built on .NET. We're using SQL Server Enterprise for our database. It's all cloud hosted. AWS is our primary data center. We do have a failover data center just in case, because hey, you know what, we got to be, you want to be careful. Ultimately, our CDN is being built into AWS now, and then we have our scalable DNS. And funny enough, what this does not include is also where we're starting to expand into more big data solutions as well. From my perspective, and again, you know, everybody's got their own opinions on what some of the bigger challenges are. From a publisher perspective, developing standards for preserving user experience in mobile, allowing publishers to match their content strategies to their monetization strategies. I don't know if anybody's looked at a website on a mobile device, but the ad experiences aren't that great. So ultimately marrying up the monetization strategy to the content strategy is going to become very important, and finding the ways to get the technology there that ultimately helps publishers do this easier. Not everybody is converting their websites to mobile in the most efficient manner. A lot of people are, you know, adaptive design is great, but doesn't necessarily take into account the way that the advertising experience is going to fit into the content experience. Tools that continue to improve visibility into data and metrics that support both the supply and demand decision. You know, there's a phenomenal amount of data out there to mine for business decisions, ultimately giving the demand side more buying power and more insight into how to buy across a large amount of impressions is very important. But not everybody is leveraging their data in the most efficient manner, so there's definitely room for growth for good data decisioning platforms for that, and platform extensions that solve specific ad platform issues. You know, finding your space in that Lumascape somewhere and figuring out how you can ultimately develop a solution that can either piggyback or solve a very specific problem in the ad space. So that's it for me.
AWS Loft Talks.